This is Defiance Daily Dispatches for the Defiant. If you've been waiting for us to start right on the hour, thank you for your patience. Was in a minor fender bender of sorts just before this program started, but as you can see, I ran through the rain to get to you. Everyone is okay, except perhaps my wet laptop. But we're here, and we're getting through it. This is Defiance Daily, and today we have a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about because with MAGA, you already know this, every accusation is a confession. And today, as much as any other, that became very apparent on issues ranging from voting to oil to communism. Yes, communism. Bear with me, because today we're going to talk about how Ken Paxton, the Republican Senate candidate, who's also the state's attorney general, who also talks a lot about voter fraud and combating voter fraud, well, how he may have committed voter fraud. And then we're going to talk about Trump's Iran ceasefire that's fallen apart, as well as the Air Force One security questions that have exploded in the aftermath of America resuming bombing against Iran. And then Donald Trump, the man who, calls Democrats communists, well, now he's promoting a literal socialist venture to give Americans cheaper gas. We're going to tell you about that and what that is with our guest, former Governor Jay Inslee, who joins us to break down the president's relationship with big oil and apparently his embrace of communism during a midterm campaign in which he's going to try to make that the boogeyman. I want to bring in my Defiance.org co-founder, Xander Schultz. Xander, there's going to be a lot of tombstones one day with the words, every accusation is a confession, because this is happening every week.
Every day. I feel like every day.
This is happening every day.
Can I say, I love that you ran through the rain to get to us in time. I'm imagining Ryan Gosling in The Notebook, just getting to us, getting to your love in time, which is the whole Defiance army.
Here to give you guys a big kiss. Made it in time. Well, Xander, I want to start off today. I loved that our producer nudged us the other day to do rapid fire Defiance and to go through, because we aren't able to cover all of these stories each day, but there is so much happening that we need to make sure that folks are aware of. These people are flooding the zone, right? We're the pro-democracy movement. The pro-dictator movement is flooding the zone, and we're not going to let them slip one past us. So I'm going to take the first one, Xander, and that is on Tuesday, and folks may have missed this, a Trump-appointed federal judge formally quashed the Justice Department's subpoenas seeking the personal information of thousands of 2020 Fulton County election workers. The judge ruled the subpoenas lacked a legitimate prosecutorial purpose and noted that even if prosecutors found evidence of wrongdoing, any potential charges would already be barred by the statute of limitations. Boom, swatted down. Trump Justice Department wanting to go hunt down and intimidate election workers. And guess what the court said? No way. Xander, you got the next one.
All right, just one day later, on Wednesday, a federal judge authorized the release of nearly $5.8 million to E. Jean Carroll, allowing payment of the damages awarded after a jury found Trump liable for sexually abusing and defaming her, ending the arbitrary cycle of Trump's constant appeals to get out of doing so. Let's go. Dude, what a great idea, Mercedes. This is so fun. This is such a good way to start the show. Let's go.
It is, and I'm glad. Look, the Trump administration is still desperately trying to find, is there any mechanism? No, there's no other mechanism. You literally have to pay her the money. And if you keep delaying paying the money, this is the beautiful part. He can't just say, I'm not going to pay the check, because they keep compounding interest on top of it. The check gets more and more expensive the longer he waits. He's going to have to give her the cash. And if you thought Donald Trump lost in the courts, you'd be wrong. He doesn't just lose in the courts. He is the biggest loser in the courts. And that's the next story of Defiance that we have. A U.S. appeals court ruled on Wednesday that President Donald Trump's name must remain off of the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts while he challenges a judge's order that required its removal. The Trump administration had tried to say, we're going to appeal. Let's put his name back up. This guy is so desperate to have his names on buildings where it doesn't belong that he basically begged a judge to let him stick it back up there while he appealed. Guess what? The appeals court said, no, you cannot do that. Keep the name off. Struck down.
We need a sorry, bro, sound effects for this guy. At
We
Yale,
do.
the law school's dean and faculty are pushing back against a proposed
Yale,
settlement with
right?
the Trump administration, arguing the university shouldn't sacrifice its independence or academic freedom under political pressure. What a crazy idea, Yale. What a crazy idea that you should be pressured by the president to follow his personal agenda.
I love this story of defiance because these university leaders have been quietly bending over backwards to try to satiate the Trump administration. But guess what? The folks in the universities, the students, the professors are saying, hell no, we're not going to capitulate. Love seeing them fight back. And speaking of fighting back, Xander, back to the courts. A federal judge in Florida dismissed Trump media's $3.8 billion frivolous defamation lawsuit against the Washington Post, ruling the company failed to show that the newspaper acted with actual malice, the legal standard required under the First Amendment. That lawsuit, by the way, stemmed from a 2023 Washington Post investigation into Trump media's efforts to secure financing before going public. These guys think they can intimidate people with lawsuits. I was thrilled that the Washington Post didn't do what other media outlets did. They didn't cut some deal and say, we'll give you $50 million as an apology. No, they said, we're going to fight this bullshit. It got thrown out. It's going to make it easier for others to fight this guy and his frivolous lawsuits.
It's so great hearing all this. You know, I think sometimes, to your point about the muzzle velocity of the Trump administration and their whole goals around feeling like they are all powerful, it's hard to keep up with the fact that those shots on goal are being blocked. They are not winning the vast majority of their attempts to, overtake our systems. And it's nice to have this section as a reminder to everyone, because it doesn't make as much news, when eventually they're shot down because they're busy creating some other chaos. It's nice as a reminder that they are losing the vast majority of their attempts to corrupt our system. So lastly,
Yes,
today, in a court appearance, many of us have been waiting for Olympic canoeist David Hearn pleaded not guilty to a felony charge tied to Trump's unsupported claims that vandals damaged the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. I know one guy who did, though, Mr. Trump. Standing beside him was our friend Norm Eisen, who called the prosecution an abuse of power. We agree, Norm.
I love this. I loved that David Hearn, the Olympic canoeist, went there, stood strong, made his point, isn't bowing down and letting them say he's a vandal and try to blame Donald Trump's screwing up of the reflecting pool on the people who are merely tourists going to the reflecting pool. And so thrilled, Xander, yes, that our friend Norm Eisen, one of the best lawyers in America, has rushed to that Olympian's defense. This has been a blitz of defiance, and there's a lot more out there, folks. But before we jump into the rest of our stories for today, let me say this. You hear me say it in these episodes. Do you see a heart button on your screen? Do you see a thumbs up button? Do you see a subscribe button? If you do any of those things, if you click a button, you are helping us grow the Defiance. I cannot think of an easier way to tell you to help grow the Defiance in this country than just taking a second to press that button. If you have to pull your phone out of your pocket to do it, please unlock your phone just to do it. Maybe a couple extra button clicks. It doesn't make our lives better. It makes America better because we can grow the Defiance in this country. Help us make sure that these stories and the actions we take to fight back against Trump's corruption get out there into the world. Help us grow the Defiance. First story today, Xander, or I guess 17th story after our blitz of defiance, would be on Ken Paxton. This matters, folks, because the control of the United States Senate could potentially come down to this wild Senate race in Texas. And we touched at the beginning of the show on how one of MAGA's favorite political tactics, which is pointing the finger at others while committing the crime that they're pointing the finger about. And this week, another investigation was revealed that fits that pattern almost perfectly, and it has to do with this Senate race in Texas. After years of warning that Texans were at risk of illegal voting in the state destroying democracy, one of the loudest voices making those warnings may have violated the very election law he spent years promising to enforce. We are talking about none other. Yeah. Hypocrisy? I can't believe it. We're talking about Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, the state's highest law enforcement officer and its Republican Senate candidate. Back in February, just weeks before his own primary, Paxton unveiled a new statewide voter fraud tip line. He told Texans this, quote, "We will never stop at trying to uncover any illegal voting activity." And writing in his 2026 election integrity advisory, clear as day, in Article 3, there is this stipulation, quote, "You must provide the address where you reside when registering to vote." Which brings us to today's story. According to a joint investigation from ProPublica and the Texas Tribune, Ken Paxton himself appears to have voted in several elections over multiple years using an address where investigators say he did not live. The reporting centers on Paxton's divorce. Court filings from his wife, State Senator Angela Paxton, state that he moved out of their Collin County home in 2024. Reporting by ProPublica links him to a different home in neighboring Denton County, where investigators found multiple pieces of evidence suggesting he had been living. Yet throughout that time, Paxton remained registered to vote at the Collin County address and cast ballots there during 6 separate elections, including this year's Republican Senate runoff, which means, shocking, Xander, under Paxton's own guidelines, he has committed voter fraud. He has committed voter fraud, which constitutes as a severe crime in Texas. I'm shocked by the hypocrisy, Xander. I can't believe this would have happened. It's almost like the people
and understandable interpretations of this type of mistake. But sorry, someone named Ken Paxton decided it needed to be treated very harshly when you do things like this. Go ahead, Miles.
Well, I was just going to say, it makes me think about, all the people who said, you got to elect us to go after the pedophiles, covering up for pedophiles. Gee, that also is an issue that has fallen at Ken Paxton's doorstep. There are so many episodes of hypocrisy, but what's so serious about this is what Paxton is saying is the type of stuff the Trump administration has been trying to claim is a nationwide national emergency that justifies the president basically taking over voting in this country, that there's such severe voter fraud that people are putting fake addresses down and immigrants are voting and it's swaying elections, none of which is true, but they're using these false claims to try to take over. And incredibly, they themselves are guilty of what they are accusing others of doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, their whole movement really relies on people being scared. Like the whole thing relies on it. There's criminals, there's socialists changing our government, there's pedophiles going after your kids. It is not a movement rooted in a positive vision for the future. It is always trying to keep us. Iran has nuclear weapons. They don't have nuclear weapons. They have nuclear weapons. The whole thing is rooted in just driving and holding people in fear, despite a lot of data to say, we're doing all right. Crime is at an all-time low. There's not much voter fraud. It's really in spite of, a lot of the data.
Well, as one of the people that served in Trump's first administration at the department, he charged with looking into voter fraud. I can tell you, we didn't find it. We did not find systemic voter fraud across the United States that made the elections illegitimate. You just didn't locate it. And so what does he do? Oh, he's trying to bring in teams that will find the fake evidence if his previous team didn't find it. And the impact, as you note, Xander, is on ordinary people. The goal here is to spread fear, right? This is voter suppression. I can't say it more loudly. I'm a conservative. I want to make sure people don't vote illegally. I think there are reasonable ways that people on both sides of the aisle can agree to do that. The ways this administration and its allies have pursued are intentionally draconian to scare people away from the polls. Often Latino voters, often women, people whose lives were turned upside down so politicians can claim they've been cracking down on fraud. And in fact, I'm going to give you an example. I want to take you back, Xander, to 2024, when a member of the League of United Latin American Citizens was confronted by armed agents in her own home over these fraud auspices. Take a look.
One of the country's oldest Latino civil rights group is calling out Attorney General Ken Paxton for voter intimidation. Last week, numerous search warrants were executed, mostly at the homes of senior citizens. This was part of Paxton's investigation into alleged voter fraud going back to the 2022 midterm election. As Ken's 5 reporter Zach Briggs explains, the League of United Latin American Citizens now hopes the DOJ can get involved.
It's horrible. It's horrible what they're doing to us.
87-year-old Lydia Martinez opened the door to unexpected guests Tuesday morning here in San Antonio. She says 9 agents from Attorney General Ken Paxton's office went into her home with a search warrant.
I asked them why they were there, and they said because of voter fraud. And I said, I'm not guilty of that.
Martinez says since the age of 7, she's helped people get politically involved and register to vote. Distressed and humiliated, Martinez recalls being forced to wait outside in her nightgown as she was questioned by authorities for 2 hours.
I said, I feel like I'm in Russia.
Inside, the raid led to the confiscation of her phone, laptop, and appointment book.
I said, I hand out voter registration, and they said, how do you hand them out? I said, I give it to the person. Do you fill them out? No.
And this is the United States of America, and when we say we're liberty and justice for all, we mean all. And Mr. Paxton, justice is coming for you too.
LULAC's Gabriel Rosales calling Paxton's election integrity investigation a mere act of voter suppression and intimidation against the Latino community.
Well, spoiler alert, Xander, DOJ did not take that up. And this was not an isolated case, by the way. Back in 2018, Paxton announced what he called an organized voter fraud ring in South Texas. One of the people arrested in that was Leticia Sanchez, a then 63-year-old church deacon, teacher's aide, and community volunteer who helped elderly neighbors register to vote. Sounds very scary and very criminal to me. She and 3 other Hispanic women were publicly accused of illegally helping older voters request mail-in ballots. 5 years later, the case fell apart. Texas' highest criminal court ruled Paxton didn't even have the authority to prosecute it. But by then, of course, the damage had already been done. Sanchez had spent years living under the label of felon before ultimately being cleared, telling the Washington Post, quote, "It's been difficult to move forward. We didn't do anything wrong. We were just helping people." These are just, tips of the iceberg, Xander, of what these folks are trying to do. And that Ken Paxton voter suppression effort is now national.
Look, the goal of these, and the woman in that interview said it correctly, is intimidation. I don't think they expect to win these lawsuits. They never expect to win these lawsuits. They are trying to intimidate people from getting involved in this process and trying to register to their neighbors and trying to be helpful. I'm reminded, and the debate around voter fraud, Miles, reminds me a little bit. I talked to Frank Luntz for a while. You know, Frank, he is a kind of great right-wing thinker.
Yeah,
I don't know, greatest.
One of the top pollsters in America, and messaging guys. Pollster and messaging
guys. And, great subject. I just meant he was effective. When I say great, but he engineered a lot of the climate change debate. And his kind of behavioral science thinking behind it was most normal people will step away from a vigorous debate, even if you keep losing it all the time. You just need to make people feel like it is a volatile conversation to get involved in. And most people that aren't heavily invested like you and I are in our process will just step away and say, I just don't want to argue with people, et cetera. And that's what they're betting on with this voter fraud case, is not that most regular people hear from the sidelines that there's volatility and it's debated heavily, and they don't know what to think, and they step away. Their goal is to get us to be intimidated, to step away from the process writ large. And we've got to, as people who are paying attention, make sure we stay in conversation with our neighbors, make sure we stay in conversation with our friends, and let them know the truth in a way that they can receive, because, people are flooded emotionally with all this nonsense.
For sure. Well, that takes us to our next story, Xander, because this one is chock full of nonsense in a lot of different ways. And that is on Iran. Iran, remember that country that we struck a deal with, a ceasefire, a deal, war, ceasefire, deal, war. Well, Donald Trump has struck the, millionth ceasefire, and now has canceled the millionth ceasefire with Iran. Over the past 48 hours, the United States launched strikes on roughly 90 Iranian military targets after Iran attacked commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran retaliated with missile attacks targeting U.S. allies across the region, including Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan. But before we get to what happened next, I want you to listen, Xander, to this exchange.
Get back much harder.
Are we returning to full-scale military conflict, sir?
I don't know. I don't know. But win it very quickly. It's another way of doing it. We have many ways we can win. but we've already won militarily. They have very little. They have very little left, and they want to make a deal so badly. They called a little while ago. They want to make a deal so badly. I just don't know if they're worthy of making a deal. I don't know that they're going to honor the deal. That's the problem.
If they want to make a deal, why do you think they attacked commercial vessels?
Because they're sort of crazy, to be honest with you. They're sort of crazy.
Okay, so if you missed the question at the beginning, basically the reporter, these are such simple questions, which is, are we going to return to full-scale military conflict, right? And Trump is saying, for the millionth time, no way, we're not. It's not going to get that bad. They want to deal so badly, so badly. They're like, well, if they want to deal with you so bad, why did they break the ceasefire? And Trump's response, he's like, well, they're crazy. The follow-up to that, it keeps going. The reporter, ends up saying, well, I mean, if they're so crazy, why did you say that they were great people and you found out that they were great and you did a great deal with them? And he's like, well, I mean, I got to know them. Wait, what? He didn't even answer the question. He said, well, I got to know them. So are they crazy or are they not crazy? Or are you the crazy one, Mr. President? I mean, look, I can't stand Donald Trump, but I want America to succeed. I don't want us to be in a senseless war. But none of us can believe our president at all when he keeps saying, we're winning so big, they want a deal so badly. What are you talking about? You can't even this president can't make a deal to give our enemy $300 billion stick. He can't make that stick. I mean, the next thing we're going to hear, Xander, we're going to hear that Donald Trump has concluded the biggest deal with Iran ever. We solved the war. We're going to give them $1 trillion now. And the ceasefire is going to hold. These guys have got us over a barrel. It is embarrassing. A literal barrel, a barrel of oil, which we're going to talk about in a second. But before we get to the oil, it turns out, Xander, that the clearest sign that the administration knew Iran was not dying to make a deal was not a military briefing. It was Air Force One itself, because after it arrived in Turkey, Donald Trump took this new Boeing 747 donated by Qatar. He made an unexpected change. Instead of flying home on that luxurious aircraft from Qatar that he'd spent months praising and hundreds of millions of dollars in our taxpayer money to retrofit, he boarded the older presidential plane for the trip home. Why? In fact, the Qatari jet that was gifted to him flew ahead to England without Trump. At first, he said this was simply so American service members could tour the aircraft. Right. But outlets now report there was another reason, and that is security. According to multiple U.S. officials, Donald Trump's security team felt more comfortable putting the president aboard the original Air Force One because it was purpose-built from the ground up for exactly this kind of threat environment, the possibility that the plane might be attacked. Which is odd, considering the administration has repeatedly defended accepting this $400 million aircraft from Qatar, retrofitting it for another $400 million to $1 billion by insisting it was safe and ready for presidential travel. Well, now that clearly is a lie, Xander, and also the reasons for taking the older jet are a lie. It's that this administration was afraid Iran was going to attack the president. So far from dying to make a deal, Iran is comfortable making sure American officials potentially die in this ongoing conflict. Lies on top of lies on top of lies. I would call it a Russian doll of lies, but that would be too on the nose, Xander, because we know whose pocket Donald Trump is in.
It's very confusing. It's all very confusing. I mean, it's not confusing in some ways. The guy's just every time I get confused, I ask myself, what's going on right now? Oh, it's a grift. It's all a grift. It's a narcissist trying to get as much money and much resources as possible from the American people. And then everything else is kind of just noise around that grift. Doesn't surprise me. Yeah, of course it was bullshit. Of course it was bullshit. Of course that plane wasn't safe. Why would we do that? We can build planes in America. Why would we take a gift from a monarch? Miles, can you explain to me? I'm going off the rails now. Can you explain to me why Iran is our vowed enemy and Saudi Arabia, who killed our journalist and I think supplied most of the 9/11 terrorists, is our friend? Like, I just don't get what our rules are anymore.
How much time do you have, man? How much time do you have? I mean, look, let me say this on the jet. I can answer the simple question here. Why did Donald Trump take the jet? Because he gets it for himself after the presidency.
Yes.
This will continue to go down. as one of the single most significant acts of corruption in presidential history. Certainly it is in volume. You put together the $400 million jet with the, close to $1 billion in taxpayer money that reportedly was going to be spent on it. You're talking about, let's just call it $1 billion gift that Trump's Justice Department says he gets to take with him into the post-presidency. You guys, when I was gifted bottles of mezcal from the Mexican government during negotiations, I had to give those bottles of mezcal to the National Archives because I wasn't allowed to privately take something of value over like $100 with me outside of government. I couldn't take $100 gifts from foreign leaders outside the government, but Trump can take $1 billion gift with him into the post-presidency. This is naked, prosecutable corruption.
My brain's going to explode. Miles, when we were doing work in DC on AI and election security together, we couldn't buy dinners that were worth more than $25 for our guests because they had to report it because
you should have seen Xander's face about this. He was like, wait, what? We have to take people to a shitty dinner because we can't. I was like, yeah, them's the rules. No, not for Donald Trump. Don't worry, folks. You're going to hear more and more about these. These stories aren't over. He doesn't just get to leave with a jet with impunity. Trust me, the investigations will be lit, but that's down the road. I want to go to our final story of the night. It's tied to all of this because, of course, it has to do with oil, because this senseless war that Donald Trump cannot find an end to, even when he tries to bribe our enemies with $300 billion to please make the war he started go away, continues to have implications here on the home front, namely with gas prices. And if you've been listening to Donald Trump lately, you may have noticed one word keeps coming up. And trust me, these things tie together. I'll get to it. And that word is communism. Reuters actually counted. Since June 23rd, Trump has invoked communism 81 times in speeches, interviews, and on social media. That was like, what, 2 weeks ago, Xander? I can't think of anything I've talked about 81 times over the course of the past 2 weeks. But he has mentioned communism 81 times in the past 2 weeks. His campaign is even testing the message in focus groups as the centerpiece of Republicans' midterm strategy. According to Donald Trump, Democrats are trying to destroy free markets. They're picking winners and losers. They are interfering with capitalism, which makes what happened this week genuinely remarkable, Xander, because the president is now personally promoting a chain of gas stations selling gasoline below wholesale costs. Trump praised these new Freedom Fuel gas stations on Truth Social and urged other retailers to follow their lead. The White House posts read this: Freedom Fuel has arrived. The first Freedom Fuel Network gas station has landed in Philadelphia, lowering the price at the pump to $3.47 for our 47th president. President Trump is leading the charge to lower gas prices this summer, putting more money in your pocket. Now, that sounds great if you're filling up your tank, but according to industry experts, there's no economic way these stations should be able to sell gas that cheaply. So, CNN spoke with the National Association of Convenience Stores, and they didn't mince words. They said there is no way a traditional gas station stays in business charging those prices. A competing station owner nearby said he could not match them, even if he wanted to. His margins simply don't allow it, which raises the obvious question. If Freedom Fuel is selling below cost, who is covering the losses? The company won't say. The White House insists there's no government subsidies. There's no way this is socialism. Are you sure? And despite being incorporated just 2 weeks ago, no owner has been publicly identified. Trump's continuous love affair with big oil is crossing over into communism territory. Here with us to discuss this is former governor of Washington, Mr. Jay Inslee, who is now at Climate Power. Governor, it is great to have you back with us on Defiance Daily. How are you doing? And what do you make of America venturing into selling gasoline to American citizens with what appears to be a communist chain of gas stations?
Well, I would say this is one of Donald Trump's greatest insults of the American people, to think this was going to impress anyone. So somehow he's got some buddy paying off some gas guy to have a PR campaign with 25 service stations in America. So Donald Trump can convince people that he really does care about gas prices. I would remind him there's about 160,000 service stations in America. And if he's done 25, he ain't cutting the mustard here, pal. So it really is insulting to think this would have any beneficial impact for him. And it's really hard for him to convince people that he cares about Americans at all. When he was asked about gas prices when the war started, he says, I don't care about gas prices. I think it's great if they go up because my buddies make more money. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the first honest things the man ever said, because he's been part of this corrupt bargain from day one in what I call the mugging at Mar-a-Lago, where he mugged all the American consumers, and he agreed to take $1 billion in campaign contributions if he would create a blockade for clean energy, which are cheaper competitors for fossil fuels. So this really plays into the largest corruption scandal in American history. By the way, I'm going to disagree just a little bit with you, Miles, if I may, when you were talking about his corrupt deal on the jet, and it is a corrupt deal on the jet. I would suggest that the corruption of this man is of a quantum leap larger than any other corruption scandal in American history. Because the typical corruption scandal is the typical kind where the politician gets a bribe, they stuff $100,000 in their pocket, or they get a free jet airplane or not. That's the old routine types of corruption. This guy's corruption is a quantum level worse because it's costing every family in America hundreds of dollars. It's costing the average family in America $450 for gas. $2,000 for a compilation of all the price increases we've seen of the Iran war and its tariffs and everything else. So I would argue that it's corruption with a capital K, so to speak, that is really worse than any other scandal in American history.
Governor, and Xander, I'll throw it to you next, but I'll just say I did just before we started, about a half hour ago, I did a back of the envelope on just like really roughly what percentage of Americans might be able to benefit from these 25 gas stations? As you know, 160,000 service stations in the United States. My conclusion is 99.999% of Americans would have to spend more money than they would save from this modestly discounted gas to get to these stations. Right? So it's like, this is the worst PR story ever. We're opening these gas stations who help the 1/1000th of 1% save a couple of pennies on gas.
Not to mention the lines you're going to have to wait in, it's going to be 15 miles long. So
that's right. Anyway, if you want this to look like communism, you just created the scenario, Donald Trump. Long gas lines.
Our lines would match Moscow's lines to get potatoes. No, I mean, it's just, but the thing is, it's not going to work. I mean, it's some guy dreamed it up in the bowels of the White House. We got to do something, man. People are not really happy that they've spent $450 more money based on a corrupt scheme that he made at Mar-a-Lago. They've understood this. They are irate. And that's why we've been, frankly, people who are not part of the Trumpican party. There's no Republican Party anymore. It's the Trumpican party. And people are not happy. And they're sort of starting to figure that out. And they're saying, the boss is going, how are you going to save me? Some guy comes up with a thing that we're going to have service stations for free. I don't think it's going to wash at all. And it really is kind of insulting. And it's really hurting people where they live. Look, we know we got a problem with 20-30% of people are one paycheck away from disaster. And you put $450 on top of them, which they've already had to spend. And God knows when this is going to end, because, he's won this war now 18 times. It's like he signed the surrender documents on the deck of the Missouri 18 times so far. MacArthur only signed it once when we actually won a war. So that's, so we don't know how long this is going to go on, unfortunately. And by the way, it's just not gas prices as well, because these energy costs go through the whole food chain, the whole supply chain on top of the tariffs. So they're in deep trouble. We've got an election coming up. I hope people are going to be active. I hope they'll be thinking of your Defiance hat when they decide what to do this November.
Okay, sorry, Xander. I swear I'm going to throw it back to you. But Governor, you and I have been in politics.
I'm
for
enjoying
some
the
time.
conversation. Go ahead.
You longer than me. It occurs to me, and I'm sure this has occurred to other people. Any of our listeners who live in the Pennsylvania area, if you're near these gas stations, the Trump administration created a compounding, unforced error. Here's what I mean by that. By cutting gas, people are so desperate right now because prices are so bad. They are going to create gas lines at these stations. They're going to create the worst fucking photo op you could ask for in a presidential administration, which is long, long lines for gas, which is a signal that things are bad, that there's rationing. If you live in Pennsylvania and you're a Defiance member, go take pictures, send them to us. If you can get pictures of long lines by these gas stations, send them to us, put them in our DMs, send them to our support email. We want to see, because I think they just created another political headache for themselves. Okay, Xander, I'm going to throw you the microphone.
I was just going to say, this is kind of par for the course for this guy. Like, I think one of his big bets is that he makes a policy that's terrible for Americans. It increases the costs, right? It removes programs from them. But he's able to grift from it in some way. I think about, putting the tariffs in place and then creating that board of peace that paid him directly to avoid tariffs. The Trump accounts, which gives every kid in America $1,000, but he also killed SNAP benefits and a number of benefits through his big, beautiful bill. But his bet is you're not going to attribute the policy and the damage that policy created to me as directly as you will when I pay you directly. I'll pay the farmers directly, even though I fucked up all of their contracts with China and they're going through this terrible thing. I'm going to give them some money directly and they're going to know I gave them money. It seems like something he's repeating over and over and over again. Jay, I wonder, this is all obvious to us, but we spend a lot of time on this program talking about we're the geeks, we're the weirdos who pay so much attention to this. Talk directly to the Democratic Party. How do you message this going into the midterms? What's the way people can understand this?
Well, just to treat it the way it is, which is a farce, and to mock it. And I think this is a perfect moment for the creative geniuses in social networks to unleash their inner memes to mock this travesty. I do agree what you're saying about handing out money as he's done, but if you compare it to the farmers' effort, it's like giving one $25 check to one hay grower in Arkansas and calling it a national policy. So it's just fertile grounds for humor and comedy to mock this guy. And I don't think it's going to have any benefit, even if we don't get lines. By the way, if people do get in lines in Pennsylvania, once you get there, you got to demand that the service station pay you back the $450 that you already paid an extra cost because of the Trump deal. Make sure you get your money back before you leave the station. So anyway, I think that's the way to go after him. And again, hammer this corruption theme. I think if I may, the Jay Inslee theory of elections this cycle, we need to focus on always four things. Every Democrat in America, I think, should run on four things. Number one, costs. He's driven up costs, obviously. Number two, chaos. He's created chaos in our national and your personal life, including unnecessary illegal wars. Third, corruption. And the corruption is a very powerful message because it doesn't matter where you are on the ideological spectrum. If you're Republican, Democrat, Green, whatever you are, people don't like getting screwed. And so corruption is a very powerful message, and it's endemic of everything this guy has touched. And fourth, climate change and pollution and clean energy. The clean energy message is so powerful right now because it's the least costly energy. It's the cleanest. It doesn't have pollution, and it reduces the climate change. And if you've been sweating like dogs, the last 3 weeks, you'll know what I'm talking about. So those four messages, cost, chaos, corruption, and clean energy, I think everybody in America should run on that. And it's a solid message, and it's in touch with everyday lives of real people. And it's not an ideological issue. It's just one based on practical experience. And this thing, too, one of my staff, I'm working with the Climate Power Organization, and Ade Sire came up with a great line today. I thought the way he termed it, the mugging of Mar-a-Lago, the fossil fuel guys said, we'll give you $1 billion because we're terrified. These clean energy industries are coming on like crazy. We can't compete with them. We can't compete with solar. We can't compete with wind. We can't compete with batteries. you got to do something, Mr. President. He says, well, give me $1 billion. And essentially what he's doing is he's blockading not just, Iran's sale of gas, which by the way means our prices go up more because we got less gas. So we are driving prices up by blockading the Straits of Hormuz ourselves.
Right.
But more importantly, his blockading the ability of Americans to get access to less costly sources of energy, which he's trying to kill every wind farm, every solar farm, every battery farm in America and gets his hands on. So we're the subject of an energy blockade right now. And it's one of the reasons our electrical bills have gone up, probably average of 16% on our utility bills this year, because he's trying to stuff coal down our throats, which is much more expensive than solar and wind and batteries right now. Tell you what, we shut off our last coal-fired plant last November. We've been working for years to replace it. We've succeeded in doing it with cleaner energy. He ordered it to be continued in operation, but nobody will buy the electricity because it's so expensive. It's just ridiculous.
It is amazing when you think about, Governor, people who have so bowed down to Donald Trump that they've bowed down to a man who's working against what they've spent their entire careers on. And what I'm thinking of is Elon Musk, right? For at least a decade of his life, he said his life's mission was going to be to save the planet by harnessing economic forces to make electric vehicles the market solution to drive us towards a way to address climate change. And look, I'm not going to understate it. Tesla changed the industry, right? It broke us into electric vehicles. But then he goes and he just self-flagellates and works for the man who is single-handedly undoing any good that those free market efforts had done to bring clean energy into the United States and change the world. I mean, it's extraordinary how people are willing to just watch their whole careers get torched by this guy and continue to laud him and praise him. And one thing I want to flag on that front, and you've been talking a lot about this, is just the deep, deep corruption of the industry with the Trump administration. And it's because Trump sees, it's very, very simple. Folks don't understand this. I saw it happen the first term with this guy. He knows that oil guys are rich guys. The policy issues don't ever matter to Donald Trump. He would be for solutions to climate change if the guys on the other side he felt like were richer. That's literally all it is, guys. It's not more complicated. There's a reason he picked Rex Tillerson to be his first Secretary of State. It's because Donald Trump thought oil guys are the biggest executives in the world. And if he can grab one of those executives and make him his guy, that makes Donald Trump more powerful. This is why he was obsessed with generals, because he's like, the generals are the most powerful guys, but if I make them my cabinet guys, I'm the most powerful guy, right? That's his psychology. It's crazy. But the governor, the intertwined aspects go to Donald Trump's own personal portfolio. And you guys have talked a lot about this at Climate Power. Donald Trump owns chunks of ExxonMobil and Chevron, and his fund managers have bought shares in these companies like Next Era Energy and Bloom Energy and Diamondback Energy and Liberty Energy and these oil fields and organizations. His energy secretary is bought in. Hell, I saw our producer flagged for me that I think it's ExxonMobil's general counsel is leaving to go where? To go to the Justice Department, to become one of the top lawyers on these issues at the Justice Department. It's such naked corruption. How are they getting away with this incestuousness that so clearly benefits their own portfolios?
Well, he hired the Exxon guy to supposedly be the watchdog over the oil and gas industry. And that's okay as long as he wears a fox collar when he goes in, when the fox goes into the chicken house. Okay, as long as he wears a fox collar on his coat.
That's so true.
Then
I'm the fox.
I'm the fox, and everybody knows what the score is here. I'm just going to drink coffee for the next 3 years. No, it really is insidious. And again, it's bad when your sense of ethics, morality, fairness, justice is offended. In Watergate, I'm old enough to remember. You guys don't remember Watergate. We were offended that Nixon violated the civil rights of some people by breaking in and then tried to cover it. It was a moral offense, if you will. This is not a moral offense. This is a personal assault. just like his sexual assault that he was found responsible for. This is an assault on the American people, and the modus operandi is corruption. It is not just a technical foul. It is an actual assault on the financial well-being of Americans based on a corrupt scheme that he effectuates every single day. And think about the extent that he will go to effectuate this corruption. He has now spent over $1 billion of taxpayer money to pay foreign corporations to not give Americans electricity, to not produce electricity. He's paying our money to not produce electricity. Talk about a blockade. That'd be like paying Khrushchev, to not send missiles into Cuba. And that's what he's doing.
It'd be like paying the Iranians $300 billion.
What's that?
It'd be like paying the Iranians $300 billion to stop letting us attack them.
The guy, he's a real deal maker, all right. I have to admit, he's a different kind of deal maker. I'll give you $1 billion.
4D chess. We can't keep up. It's
like he goes into a car dealer. He goes into a car dealer and says, "I'll give you $50,000 if you agree not to give me a car." That's his kind of deal that he makes.
Well, Governor, we're all here at Defiance.org. We're all about taking action. I know Climate Power has some actions folks can take. Can you give us the latest on Climate Power and what we can do before we let you go here?
Well, continue to participate in your efforts. You guys do such great work. Miles, you did such a national service a few years ago, and you still are. So first off, stay involved in this community and this discussion. Second, and this, it's not going to shock you. Go find one candidate at any level and decide you want to help them out. It might be a city council race. It might be a state legislative race. It might be a governor's race. Go find one candidate that you can help, that you believe in, to write this. And I can tell you, individual things both help collectively and individually. I started out beating a Republican in a red Republican district because I got one guy to help me literally get me elected. So I hope people will get engaged this November. It is the most important election. Democracy, we haven't talked much about democracy. Another thing that's sort of important that is at risk right now. And find out a way to help. Just go in and drop in their headquarters and say, what can I do? And whatever it is, sending financial help is always great. But just give them your ideas and some of your time. Talk to your neighbors. Use your social media. Spread the Defiance message to your friends and neighbors. And you're going to feel better about it. You'll feel you have agency. And we need people to feel agency right now. We are not helpless. And we're going to be heard this November. So that's my advice.
And if you go to the Climate Power website and find their support email and you happen to email them and say, former Governor Jay Inslee should run for president in 2028, I'm not going to be mad at you. He might think that's a kiss of death for a conservative like me to encourage him to run for president of the United States. But, maybe we can send that message.
And if you want to make news and announce it right now, feel free. We haven't.
I will. I will. I'm going to run for president of the Bainbridge Rotary Club that has the biggest nonprofit auction this Saturday. Come to Bainbridge Island. We raise $1 million for nonprofit.
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first. He is running for president of the Rotary Club.
Actually, I'm giving it a serious consideration.
Oh, man.
You heard it here first. Governor, it is wonderful to have you with us always. Thank you for everything you do on this front. Seriously, we are very grateful, and let's do this again soon. And I'm sure we'll have plenty of reasons to.
Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and organize. Let's go get them. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Well, that's a fitting sign into our final segment of the day, Xander, and every day, which is who is joining the Defiance in this country.
I got it today. This guy
Who?
Did. I sold my fucking Tesla today.
I know you did. That's right. Yeah.
Speaking of Tesla,
if you're not going to hit the heart button because you want to help spread the defiance in this country, at least hit the heart or like button right now to cheer Xander on for getting rid of his Tesla because he just couldn't stand it anymore.
I could do that. It was embarrassing being associated with that brand. It's out of here.
There you go, man. Bravo. Well, I'll add this. Every minute in this country, there is a new citizen out there rebuking the bad orange man. Reminder, if you go to orangemanbad.com, .com or .org?
I got a review. Hold on.
I think we own that domain.
Orangemanbad.org. Orangemanbad.org. If you're
Orangemanbad.org.
feeling that way, just type that
if you
in.
don't want to tell people to go to defiance.org, you can tell them to go to orangemanbad.org and you can send them there. But anyway,
every time you see a guy, you're like, that orange man is being bad.
Orangemanbad.org. Lot of citizens out there rebuking him and joining Defiance. And we love bringing those people into the spotlight and welcoming them in. However, when the moon aligns just right and the wind is blowing in the perfect direction and the metaphors are mixing, someone who has already mastered the art of defiance comes across our desk, and game respects game, folks. Too much not to hand them the spotlight, too, even if they don't need any new welcomes. So check the wind direction, because that is exactly where we have found ourselves today with a prominent activist and skilled baker, Haley Pop. Haley co-runs the podcast, The Necessary Conversation, where she educates her MAGA parents on Trump's corruption. However, when she's not drilling holes in MAGA's logic, she is slinging pastries and running Hive Bakery in Flower Mound, Texas. Now, folks, Haley is such a masterclass that she has found a way to even welcome her bakery to the Defiance. Okay, on the 4th of July, she decided to serve these cakes that read, "Under Distress," and in a Facebook post said how disappointed she was in the country that MAGA was, quote, a cult of unintelligent, rabid, immoral psychopaths, and that conservatives who still have rational thought have left the MAGA movement. Now, the cult of unintelligent psychopaths that haven't left the MAGA movement didn't like this statement one bit, and they decided to call Hive Bakery to give Haley a piece of their mind. But clearly, these guys did not know who they were up against. So take a look at what happened.
Bakery, how can I help you? Oh, we're gonna go damn hard. No, we're not. We have a line out the door. Hive Bakery, how can I help you? No, we love America. That's why we fight for it. We hate Donald Trump and the entire administration. It's a fascist regime and they're holding us all back. You know that you voted for. You know he's a convicted felon. You know that he's using your money to fund all of his vanity projects, but you want to call me stupid? You're so patriotic. Oh my God, I have to go. We're so busy. Hive Bakery, how can I help you? I'm only 16 years old and I didn't write that. So you're berating a child right now. You should be ashamed of yourself. I'm just a punk kid. I didn't write the article. Why are you attacking me? I just work here, bro. You should have respect for the country that gave you birth. Hive Bakery, how can I help you? What's the Michael Jackson song? If the angels came from me, I'd tell them no. Hive Bakery, how can I help you? Well, I don't think it's just me exercising my right to the freedom of speech. You are such a miserable human. Is that the best you got? Because I heard it about 50 times today. What are you going to do if you show up? I have a recording going, so tell me, what are you going to do if you show up to my bakery? He farted in the phone.
Who's thinking of that?
What? Unbelievable. Okay, so listen, I would pay good money to see the point of view of these MAGA jerks on the other line when she ends the call and they just get to sit there and think, oh man, I need a hobby for having done this. Xander, she doesn't need our support, but I will say, while we were sitting here watching that, which was just great, I went to Hive Bakery TX, Texas, hivebakerytx.com. And it looks like you can order stuff to support them. It looks like there's sticker packs and other things that you can order from Hive Bakery. So if folks want to show some love, I also think you can go out there and review them on Google and give them good reviews to counter the MAGA madness, but it doesn't seem like they need it. Hive Bakery has 4.8 out of 5 stars with 1,807 Google reviews. But if MAGA is trying to dive bomb this business and do it damage, I'm pretty sure the Defiance.org community can go crowdsource the counterweight to that very significantly. Look, if you're feeling up to it, go show Hive Bakery Texas some love. Good on her to not take that crowd negativity in silence.
It's we've covered so many examples of this. So many people have thought the way to survive this moment is neutrality. Just don't say anything. Keep your head down. And what we've seen over and over and over again is, you might rile up some people, but also people gravitate towards you for standing on the right side of history and being unafraid. People gravitate to people that are fearlessly taking on authoritarianism. And at the end of the day, whether it's Don Lemon or this bakery right here, people are succeeding by saying what we all know to be true. And so it's good to see her succeed.
And we can announce today that Don Lemon is going to work at that bakery. So it's like all coming together. And Jay Inslee is running for president, maybe? I don't know if he actually just announced that on our program or not. Well, he made the Rotary Club joke, and then he said he was maybe actually considering announcing. So I don't know. We might have made some news there. Well, anyway, Haley, Hive Bakery, welcome to the Defiance. Thank you for what you were doing. So great to see people out there fighting back. We have time for maybe just one or two questions. We've had such packed programs. We have not had enough questions from defiance.org members. Please feel free to drop them into the chat. Songbird's mom 1001 says, shall we send cupcakes to Soulmate Award winners? That's not a terrible idea. For those of you who are watching who don't know, on Fridays, that means tomorrow, we announce the winner every week of the Donald J. Trump Soulmate Award. The person who licks his boots the most. And maybe we should send that person Hive Bakery cupcakes. That would be interesting. We were sending them a pair of Donald Trump's favorite shoes in the wrong sizes, but those award winners kept sending them back. So we stopped doing that. Let's think about that idea. So there's a possibility there. Songbird. Yeah, Xander, the wheels are turning. What could we do? Xander never has a shortage of pithy ideas.
This isn't that good of an idea. I was going to say, I'd like to send them a psychiatrist to do the Goodwill Hunting scene with them, where it's like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And just get them to eventually break down in their arms and help them come to Jesus. That's what I'd love to ship over to each of these guys. But
that's right.
I don't know if that's possible. Rob Williams, not around anymore to deliver that service.
Well, let me take one more quickly, Xander, which is Lori asks, Miles, what do you think about Gretchen Whitmer on Hot Mic saying people don't want says centers here, but we do it anyway? I don't know what you mean by that, Lori. Are we missing a word in there? Hot Mic saying people don't want says centers here, but we do it anyway.
Guys, I don't get what's confusing about that. Just answer the question.
Yeah. Oh, AI centers. I didn't see the hot mic moment. I will say this. We've talked about it before. I think this will be forget gay marriage, forget guns, forget whatever social issue you thought was a flashpoint in our politics. For the next few decades, it is going to be the visual elements of artificial intelligence in our society. It's going to be the data centers. It's going to be the autonomous robots that may sound very George Jetson to you. Folks, you're going to see them in your communities before the end of this year. Companies are shipping autonomous robots to help people do laundry and things like that. This is going to be a huge cultural divide in the United States. And of course, Donald Trump, the nuclear distraction that he is keeping us from addressing these issues. So don't know what Gretchen Whitmer said on that front, but I will say people care a lot about this because right now they're getting their asses kicked at the grocery store, at the gas station, and they are rightfully furious to see that robots may literally be taking over their jobs, and the data centers coming into their communities feel like the visual affirmation of that and an insult in an economy where people are struggling to get by. So I think it's only going to get worse. And I think that politicians are going to be on the right side of history if they say, you know what, we hear you. You're right. We have not figured out how to prepare for this economic reality. And certainly the last person on this earth that has an agenda for how we adapt to the age of AI is Donald Trump.
No shit. You know who would is President Jay Inslee, because renewable energy would help a lot with these issues. It was interesting hearing him talk about renewable energy and infrastructure here in the context of the Iran war. And maybe the climate movement hasn't made a bigger deal connecting their movement to like the no more forever wars, no more like, you know, these confusing foreign policies where we're intertwined with all these countries. maybe it's a good time for them to hammer that. It really does. It's such a reminder when we have them on how many of our issues come from our reliance on oil and our unwillingness to transition to technology that, as Jay mentioned, is now cheaper. It's better and cheaper. It's no longer in the J curve part of this where you need to subsidize it. It is better than the incumbents. We just need to scale it.
I don't know, man. It's crazy for me to be cheering on the former governor of Washington State, but sure do like him. Sure do like him. He'd be a good one out there. His 4 C's were pretty good. Costs, chaos, corruption, clean energy. Good. He's got a hell of a platform right there. I think most Americans on both sides of the aisle would like that. Anyway, we'll hound him. You can hound him too. Go find that support email address at Climate Power. Tell them Jay Inslee should run for president. I want them to get a few of those emails at least. Tomorrow, Xander, we have a big program. We have, of course, it's Friday, which means we're going to talk through the MAGA losses of the week. If it's any indicator, it's going to be a long list, folks. You've heard us go through these rapid fire defiances at the top of the episode. There have been MAGA losses piled up to the sky this week. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about that because it's important to remind you that we are winning in the fight. We're not winning everywhere. We're not winning always, but the defiance is strong in this country. And we're going to talk about those MAGA losses. We, of course, will award the Soulmate Award winner. I think folks can see the past winners if they want to go check it out at soulmate.award. We let you vote on who that winner should be. Soulmate.vote. Soulmate.vote. SOLEMATE.vote. You can see the past winners. Tomorrow we will put forward 3 new nominees, but also we have with us tomorrow on the program the great Andy McCabe, the former acting director of the FBI, the former deputy director of the FBI, and someone who stood up under withering fire to Donald Trump and did the right thing. He will be on the program talking about some of the latest setbacks that Donald Trump has faced and some of these other acts of corruption that we have to continue to hold him accountable on. So join us tomorrow with Andy McCabe and to go through those MAGA losses. That's it for our show today, Xander. I got to say, I cannot wait for the next few weeks because we have some additional actions. We've always got actions. We take action every Wednesday, but we've got some great actions coming up to protect our democracy, to protect the midterms, to protect the rule of law in this country. And you all who are part of the Defiance community are making that possible. You are our bosses. You are crowdsourcing this movement. You are going to be the ones that save our democracy. So we look forward to making some of those big announcements in the weeks ahead. But let's just start small. Join us tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here. In between now and then, stay loud, stay brave, and stay together. We'll see you Friday.
Bye, gang.